and mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. In the black community, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why?
But once you get a control and an understanding of who you are, no one can use you against you. No one can ever use your mental illness against you. You've already spoke about it, so what you got?
The biggest point in life to resolve mental health is like giving a fuck about a person.
Where did you get the courage? I got the courage. The 2 words. I care.
It's Chill Will Radio, where connections will be made, advice will be given, jokes will be told, and things will get real. My name is Willis Cooks, and I'm your host. But understand this show is not meant to be used as a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Enjoy the show, y'all. Yo. What's the deal, everyone? Welcome to another fantastic episode of Chill Will Radio. This is episode 23. Episode 23, man. Got a long way to 100, but we will hit 100 at some point. That 100 may actually come quicker than I thought it would be, but we'll talk about that later on, a few weeks, a month from now, whenever that situation go down. But anyway, welcome to Chill Will Radio, man. My name is Willis Cooks, here talking all things mental health, the good, the bad, the ugly, the taboo, the things that we shouldn't be talking about, and the things that we're afraid to talk about. They all will be discussed here in a real way with me, Willis Cooks. That was kind of corny, but welcome everyone, man. First and foremost, thank you to those individuals who are tuning in. Thank you to those individuals who will be tuning in the middle of the show because you got something going on right now. Thank you to those individuals who will be tuning in tomorrow, later on, this evening, next week, next month, next year, whenever you're listening to it, good looking, and even more so, thank you to everyone who will not be listening to this because you haven't caught on yet. You may not catch on right now, but you will catch on to it eventually. Man, I had somebody ask me, man, why do I say that last part every show? It's important for me to shout out those individuals who are not going to catch on. That's just a way for me to understand that I still have more people to reach. I still have someone else to touch, right? I'm obviously very, very, very grateful for the one person that listens to this, right? I'm grateful for you if you listen to this for 1 minute or 2 minutes, 30 seconds. If you just only listen to the intro and that's it, I don't care. I'm grateful even if you downloaded the app, thought about listening to it, then deleted it because you thought I was whack. Good looking, right? I'm grateful for you for even giving it a shot. But there are those individuals who won't catch on to it at all. There are those individuals who I haven't reached yet or touched yet. There are those individuals who just aren't willing to hear such conversations or have such conversations. And it's thoroughly important that we touch those individuals, right? Because this is not just a mental health show for me as a therapist or another therapist, or we're not sitting here finna have a therapy talk. We're not about to sit here and have we're not about to speak therapist language, right? Because I can get very, very clinical, but the clinical terms that I will use, many people won't be able to understand. So what's the point of even going that route, right? I'm trying to speak to those individuals who are in the hood. I'm trying to speak to my boys who are on the block. I'm trying to speak to those individuals who are too, quote unquote, hard to speak about things when it comes to mental health, right? And for that to happen, I have to speak about it on a genuine level, right? I can't be on here discussing things and speaking in a clinical way as if I'm speaking to a patient or as if I'm, documenting and writing notes and doing assessments and using all these terms and asking all these questions and all of these things. Nah, we're here having real conversations with real people, right? That's why the majority of folks who have been on the show thus far, they haven't been therapists, they haven't been doctors, they haven't been anybody that has any type of experience within working as a professional within the mental health field. I probably had 2 or 3, but there will be way more individuals who have no experience working in this field on this show. Because like I said, it's important that we get everybody. I don't care who you are. If you're, I don't know, the tamale lady that's waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, the dude in the ice cream truck, or the homie selling dope in the hood, it don't matter. As long as you're willing to have these conversations that we normally we run away from. Hence to to the theme of the topic of today's, but having these conversations that we run away from, and it's very, very, very important to me, because I know me, for instance, I run away from having certain conversations, even now to this day. Run away from speaking about my feelings, having these conversations with certain people. It's hard, it's tough, but it's always best to have it now than to wait until life decides to just, really fuck you up to have these conversations. So to those individuals who won't be listening ever in life and just think what I'm talking about is nonsense, you're not even interested in mental health. And if you think mental health is just fake and it's some pseudoscience that doesn't exist, cool. But at some point, dog, you're going to have to deal with your own mental health. You may not have to do it right now, but you'll have to deal with it at some time in the future. My man Keith, what's the dealio, partner? What's the dealio, man? So, moving on into, before we move into the self-care piece, I'm moving quickly. How am I doing? Willis, you can't forget about checking in on yourself. How am I doing, man? I'm good, man. How was my week? My week was really, it was really good, really chill. I was at my new job this whole week. It was refreshing just learning a bunch of new stuff this week. The biggest thing that I've decided to do is to get back into an old habit. And that old habit is creating a to-do list every day and crossing those things off. I used to do that for years. Every morning or every night, I would write a quick little to-do list, boom, 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 and cross it off. But I got to a certain point in time to where I got, I don't want to say too big-headed, but I got to a certain point in time to where I thought, like, my to-do list, I could just keep it in my head and I'll be good. And that was good for a while. Like, that was good for a good minute. But recently, what I've been noticing is that I'll have all of these ideas and things to do in my head, but I don't do them because I don't know where to start, right? And that's the same for like a lot of people, right? We have all of these things in our head that we need to do, but we just don't do them because we don't know where to start. It's not that you have anxiety about doing it. It's not that you don't know how to do it. It's just we don't know when to start. And for me, I didn't know where to start. I want to do this, I want to do that. And then sometimes we forget about the things that we actually want to do. We have certain goals, projects. We want to be able to hit certain deadlines, and we come up with ideas, and we tell one person we're going to do this, and then a month down the line, we forget about it. We don't actually make any attempt towards getting it done, right? I've noticed I was doing that as of recently, solely because I just thought like I had everything in control and I don't really need a calendar, and I'm a whole lot more. Today, I'm way more busier than I've ever was with all of the jobs, with the things I'm doing outside of work, with the things I'm doing anywhere else, right? So I've gotten to the point to where I needed to have a calendar. I don't even look at that calendar, but the fact that it's there and I'm trying to utilize it is a big thing for me. But getting back into the old habit of writing down a to-do list and crossing it out. Like it is something about crossing out those tasks on that to-do list, right? I started it today. I had a to-do list of doing a few things, and I literally got through everything on my list before I actually got here and talking to y'all. That feels good, right? That doesn't have anything to do with the self-care piece. Kind of does in a little bit, but that's just something that I've been doing. That's something that I'm getting back into, getting back into the old habit of writing down to-do lists and getting it done, right? Getting it done. Bro, I was just talking about to-do lists. Yeah, man. I think to-do lists are overrated. I mean, not overrated, underrated. I really think to-do lists are underrated. I think people tell you right now this and blah, 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 but I think people get overwhelmed with the fact that they have to sit down and write down certain things that they want to do, and they make that to-do list too big. And it's like, nah, your to-do list don't have to be big. It could be 4 things, right? Depending upon your situation, right? If you're someone dealing with depression and you isolate a lot, like one of those things could be just getting up and going outside to get the mail or taking a shower. Just one small little thing to help you out with your to-do list, right? It doesn't have to be a lot. It gets overwhelming and it gets ridiculous when you put down 10 different things. And those 10 things are very vague, very broad, right? You're not specific in your to-do list. So if you get more specific in your to-do list, and if your to-do list isn't long for the day, if you're not setting yourself up for failure, man, that to-do list can be very, very rewarding, man. It gives you a physical track of progress. It definitely does give you a physical track of progress, right? Because if you don't have the to-do list, so like for me, I'm getting back into doing it, but within that time in which I wasn't using it, I knew I was getting things done. I was progressing in my life, but you're not able to physically see it, right? You can't physically go back to it and be like, yo, I did this today, right? You tend to forget about everything that you've done, right? You tend to forget about everything that you've done. So creating that to-do list gives you that ability to go back and be like, yo, I may have not done this today, but yesterday I did this, this, and this, and this. Even if you're feeling like trash, right? Even if you're feeling like trash, you could always go back to that to-do list and say, hey, I was feeling like trash at this time, but I was still able to do it, you know? And you could shift your to-do list up, you know, every now and then. So certain people want, and also, how do you want that to-do list to be done, right? Certain people want to have it on their phone. I can't do that. Right? Because it's with the calendar and with everything else on my phone. I don't really have too many productive type of apps in my phone because I be forgetting to use them. Right? I really do. So I bought a small little booklet, like small little journal or whatever fit in my pocket. I'm going to just keep that in my back pocket. And I've just been writing things down, right? So today was my first day actually using it. And I conquered and completed everything that's on that to-do list. Right? So when you physically cross it out, not just deleting it and pushing a button, but when you physically take a pen and wipe it off, yo, that's like, it's not the greatest feeling in the world, but it's a feeling of accomplishment. And that small feeling of accomplishment could grow into something else. It gives you the ability to know that, hey, I can get things done. I have control over shit, you know. So having that small little thing, man, is dope. My man Didier said he used Post-it notes on his room door and car dash. Man, Post-it notes is good. Post-it notes is good. Me, I don't know. It's like, if it's just there in front of me, it's like, Post-it notes could work well for you, Didier. But for me, if it's like there in front of me, it won't really remind me. It'll just be like in the way, if that makes sense. Right? Because I'm not thoroughly paying attention to it. Just like, oh, that's in the way. And then I can zone out and focus on something else. I've never been good at Post-it notes, but Post-it notes work well. I know a lot of people who have their whole mirror, like in their bathroom, all sticky note up. Like a lot of people use color coordinated stuff. Whatever works for you at the end of the day. And that part right there is a great, so good looking Didier. That part right there is a great segue. Keith said Post-it notes give him anxiety. They give me anxiety as well, bro. It's kind of like they're everywhere, and then once you use it, you throw it. It's just like, nah. But like I said, if it works for you, it works for you. And that right there is a perfect segue into the self-care piece of the day. And as always, it's like I always say, I always like to give people something to implement within their self-care regimen. And as I was researching, and trying to figure out what self-care piece I could bring to you all today, I came across this article. And the article was about, what was the title of the article? Let me get to it. The title of the article was, for many people with anxiety, self-care does not work, right? The title of the article was, for people with anxiety, for many people with anxiety, self-care does not work. So like, what? You know, I had to look at it. So I read through the article, and the article was really, really dope, right? The article was really, really good. It spoke about how certain people who have anxiety, sometimes self-care can become a chore. Sometimes self-care can become a chore, and if you have history of anxiety, completing that chore will make you more anxious, and that self-care will not be as helpful as we really think it is. And there was two standpoints within that article that thoroughly stuck out to me, right? The first point was self-care has become very fetishized and trendy, right? Self-care has become very fetishized and trendy. And the second part was finding the self-care that works for you, right? So I've spoken about this plenty of times before here on the show, in that I believe mental health has become trendy. Mental health has become a trend, and I believe in that, right? And anybody disagrees with me, that's fine. I don't really give a damn, but I believe in that, right? Mental health has become a trend. However, it's good, right? Because people are speaking about it, right? People are speaking about it. So I don't care if they're speaking about it the wrong way or the right way. People are actually speaking about it. That's going to bring some attention to it, right? So once mental health came into play, then self-care came into play as well. Now you go on Instagram, it's always like self-care, 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 right? To be completely honest, I didn't even know the term self-care existed probably until like 2 years ago, if that. And even today, like I do even today, it is hard for me to purposely go out and do some form of self-care. But I didn't realize that, you know, I've been doing self-care my whole entire life through working out, through you know, going places, through traveling. That's been my form of self-care. So doing self-care itself has become trendy, has become fetishized, right? If that's the right word. Yeah. Has become trendy, has become fetishized because people, the way we live in a Instagrammable, microwavable generation, right? So everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. So when I see 30 posts about self-care and I'm not doing no self-care, or I don't take the chance to actually go out and do something for self, I begin to feel less than, right? I begin to feel as if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do for myself. So I go ahead and go do it, right? In that article, it was about an individual who made that exact decision. Like, hey, every single day I'm going to do 20 minutes of self-care, right? Every single day I'm going to do 20 minutes of self-care. And she was doing it. Boom, 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 boom. But she was just doing the things that she would see. She would Google something and go forth and doing it. She would see something on Instagram and just do what she see on Instagram. So when it came time to doing that self-care thing for that 20 minutes for that day, she began to get anxious. Her anxiety began to build, and she started to have anxiety attacks towards doing self-care, right? And it's like, once that self-care starts to lead over into the trigger category, once that self-care starts to lean over into the trigger category because you feel as if you have to do it, you feel as if it's a chore, my main suggestion for you to stop doing that self-care, because that's when that self-care would begin to get more, what's the right word? Negative. That's not the word I was looking for, but negative. That's when that self-care will not be helpful at all once it starts to lean over to the trigger category side. But, you know, the thing with that situation is, just because you hear somebody telling you to do some form of self-care, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that at all. This is the 23rd episode. This is the 23rd episode. And I've given you 23 ways of self-care that you can implement within your self-care regimen. Are you supposed to do every single thing that I say? Hell no. Do I do every single self-care piece that I put on here? Hell no. Why? Because every self-care piece does not work for me. Just like every self-care piece does not work for you. And that was the second part that I got out of this, right? Finding the self-care that works for you. Do that. Right? Find the self-care that works for you. So that means you have to be open to everything. Be open to everything. And this is actually the self-care piece that I want everybody to implement within their self-care regimen. Be open to everything. But the second you start to realize that one thing that you're open with is starting to lean over into that trigger category, cut it off. Right? Be open to everything, but the second you start to notice that one thing that you're open with, it starts to trigger you, it starts to give you some form of anxiety, cut it off. Don't continue to do it just because you see everyone else doing it. No, don't do it, right? I like self-care. For me means physical activity, right? Getting up and move, some form of challenges, right? I have to lift weights, I have to lift heavy things, right? That gives me self-care. However, I hate running. I hate running with the passion, right? I can do sprints. I can, you know, run up a hill. I can do those sorts of HIIT type of workouts, but jogging, going for miles, whatever. Once I realized that exact moment I fell asleep on that treadmill, I was like, fuck this, I ain't doing this no more. I haven't got on the treadmill since. That moment I fell asleep on the treadmill, that's when I realized this whole running thing ain't for me, right? Because running was a chore, right? I hated it. I despised it. And I just felt like I had to do it because everyone else was doing it. And I felt like that was the only way of cardio, when in reality, no. All cardio means is just building up your heart rate. So if you could just lift weights without stopping, that's cardio. If you could just go box, that's cardio. Playing basketball is cardio. Doing whatever you have to do so your heart rate could increase, that's cardio. So once I began to understand that, I was like, fuck you running. I ain't doing it. right? Same with everything else, right? I mentioned, what was one of the things I mentioned on here that I don't do? Coloring. I mentioned coloring as a self-care piece. I don't do that. I believe I'm terrible at it. I can't even color in the lines, right? I don't do that, right? Another thing is a self-care piece I mentioned a while back was doing one thing that you hate every single day, right? I believe that's very productive. I believe that's very effective. But I mentioned that to someone else. They was like, oh, no, fuck that, right? Oh, no, fuck that. And if you're not in the right headspace, doing that one thing that you hate every day could set you back. So don't do it, right? So be open to all forms of self-care. But if that self-care piece, if you start to notice that self-care isn't for you, don't do it. Be open to all forms of self-care. But if you start to notice that self-care piece is not for you, stop. Stop. Don't let Instagram, don't let society, don't let this whole mental health, mental wellness, and all of this other things force you to believe that you have to do this. Because literally, self-care is anything. Self-care can be literally anything. For me, self-care is this. Self-care is breathing. Self-care is drinking water. Self-care is walking. Self-care is waking up at a certain time. Self-care is giving your girlfriend a hug. Self-care is dapping your boy up. Self-care is doing whatever. Self-care is taking a shit. Literally, anything that will be anything that allows you to quickly escape the bullshit that you have going on in your life is your self-care, right? So do whatever you have to do. Find what works for you and stick with that. I've never been the type of individual that's like, pay attention to your weaknesses and strengthen your weaknesses. Like, nah, you can hire somebody for that. No, stick to what's strong, right? Stick to what you like. Stick to what you know and pay attention to that. So if you have a self-care piece that has been working for years, do not allow Instagram to make you do something else. Do not allow myself to make you do something else. You could try, but once you start to realize like, yo, this shit don't work, well, this is wrong. Cool. I don't care. As long as you try, do what works for you. That's all that matters. Because certain things that I say here on this mic probably won't work for a lot of people. I curse. Right? I curse in group therapy. I curse in individual therapy. I curse here on the show. I'm not cursing like fuckity, fuck. But I'm cursing to emphasize certain words. People hearing me cursing, that may trigger them. And that may completely force them to tune me out. If that happens, then that's fine. Right? There are tons of therapists for you. Just like there are tons of other self-care, pieces and things for you that you can implement within your self-care regimen. Right? So the article that I read was a really, really good article, man. It was, for many people, self-care doesn't work. You're absolutely right. For many people with anxiety, self-care doesn't work. But that only self-care isn't going to work if that self-care becomes mature. And the second that self-care becomes a chore, cut it off. So, moving on forward to the main topic of the show today. Running away from your shit. Running away from your shit, man. It's that right there is very, everybody can relate to that. At every single point in our lives, we all run away from something. We run away from something, some form of pain, some form of guilt, some form of improving ourselves, right? We run away from it all. And we hardly ever go back to it, right? We hardly ever go back to it. We figure out all sorts of ways to run away from it. We sit here and lie to ourselves about running away from situations. We get so comfortable with running away from situations, and it's a bunch of other things and why we run away from situations. So that's the main thing that we're going to speak about today, right? Running away from situations. How do certain people do it? I'm going to speak about how I've done it in the past. Certain ways you could do in order to face and to stop running away from situations. We're going to go that route, right? So for me, to be quite honest, like, I've always been a very insecure individual. To be completely honest, I've always been a very insecure individual, right? Period. Right? I've been insecure about the way I look, about my complexion. I've been insecure about I got 1,000 gaps in my teeth. I've been insecure about the way I speak. I've been insecure about how smart I am. I've been insecure about fucking me having lazy eyes. I've been insecure about what else? A bunch of shit, right? I've been insecure about whatever, right? And I've figured out how to be able to run away from those insecurities, right? So for me, right, I have a past in which I've made it through a bunch of shit, right? I've made it through being homeless. I've made it through selling drugs. I've made it through all of this other reckless stuff, the foster care system, everything else, you know. But I've used those accomplishments to hide away from the fact that I was insecure. So one of the things that I would do is I would just put all of my problems on the table. I would tell someone like, hey, I'm stubborn. I can be big-headed. I can be arrogant at times. I could be difficult. I would put all of that stuff on the table, and that would allow that individual to know what they're working with. So that gives me the ability to not change, right? That gives me the ability to not change because you knew what you was dealing with from the gate. You knew what you was dealing with from the jump. So for me to be able to change is not happening, right? So I used to use that as a way to be able to run from my own insecurities, right? I'm the type of individual to put all of my accomplishments out there so that way I don't have to deal with anything on the inside. I put all of my accomplishments out there so that way I don't have to deal with anything on the inside. That shit is hard, yo. It is hard to really deal with the stuff on the inside. I'm just now learning how to be open about my feelings. Like my girlfriend, I ain't gonna say she hates this shit, but it's coming up much more now. Like I'm starting to not like her because she's progressing and she's progressing and opening up about her feelings much quicker than I am. And I'm like, what the fuck? I always preach this communication shit, but when it comes to communication, I'm the one who shut down. I'm such a hypocrite and blah, 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 blah. Like, it is tough, yo. So I figure out all sorts of things to run away, right? I run away by lifting weights. I run away by even therapy, right? Helping someone else out, me becoming a therapist and helping someone else out is a way for me to actually be able to run away from my issues. Because when I see the next person going through some stuff, it's 1,000 times easier to help that individual out with their shit than it is for me with my stuff, right? It's 1,000 times easier for that. And the other reason why I sit there and I self-disclose a lot, because me self-disclosing is allowing that other individual to know that something goes on with me, but that doesn't mean I have to fix it. I just put it out there. I just put it out there and I forget about it. I put it out there and I let it be. Carly, what's the deal, man? Before, let me stop right here. Miss Carly Hill, C.E. Hill. She's an individual that I met back in Cleveland when I was going to grad school. She's a fabulous individual, man. She just got this ED, executive director job up in New Orleans in Holly Grove, where Lil Wayne from, and all this other stuff, man. She's always been very, very big in nonprofits. Me and her went to school. We got the same nonprofit degree. She has her own nonprofit. She be doing so much beautiful stuff, and she's going to be so great. So, Carly, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I know you're finna turn New Orleans out with everything that you're doing with your new organization. You know, so shouts out to you and good looking to you, man. We need Holy Fix. What, Didier? I don't know. But going back into me, man. It's just like I purposely self-disclose and put myself out there, right? So I don't have to deal with it. So I don't have to deal with it at all. I had somebody tell me a few years ago, like, Willis, the reason why you're okay with being so busy is because that gives you the ability to not deal with life. And that is true. I got 4 jobs. I do this. I'm planning other stuff. I'm getting ready for school. I got all this other regular stuff that I'm doing. Do I ever sit down and just deal with life? No. Do I want to sit there and deal with life? No. But do I understand that I need to sit down and deal with life? Absolutely. Right? And that's the same with you all, right? What are you running away from, right? Figure out what you're running away from, and why you're running away from it, right? Because what we don't understand is that when we run away from something for so long, we're going to get way more comfortable. We're going to get way more comfortable with running away, right? Running away is going to seem like it's going to get easy. It's just going to be our natural thing, right? Whenever we see an issue up, I'm going left, right? And especially if we use something positive in order to run away. Like, like traveling, right? There's a lot of people who travel in order to get away from their bullshit. Traveling is a very dope coping skill. It's a very dope coping mechanism. It allows you to be able to experience so many things. But when you're traveling, that's fine. But once you come back, all that shit's still gonna be there, right? So traveling is a way certain people use to run away from situations, but the stuff is still gonna be there. And that's the issue right there. No matter how far we run away, no matter how long we run, those problems are still gonna be there. And the thing is, right, what's gonna happen is those problems are not only gonna be there, but those problems are gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like that laundry load that you have in your house. It's like that laundry load that you have in your house, and you just completely put it off, right? You completely put it off, and you run away from doing that laundry. I'm gonna do it next week. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do it whatever. You throw a shirt there, some pants down, some drawers down, and next thing you know, boom, boom, boom. Now you gotta spend $20 to do laundry. Now you gotta fold all them damn clothes. Now it's gonna take you a whole ass 4 hours just to do laundry when you could have just stopped, did it at that moment, and got it over with, right? And that's the same thing with us running away from our problems. When we continue to run away from it, the stuff is just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually all that stuff is just gonna fall on top of us. Or when we decide to turn around and face our issues, we're gonna be like, damn, I gotta face all that. And then you just, it's easier to run away, so I'm just gonna keep running. Run over, man. So we gotta understand, running away from the situation, it may be fixing it temporarily, right? That may be a definitive solution at that moment, right? But is it really gonna fix the issue at the end of the day? No, right? That's why the title of the show is "If It Ain't Broke, Don't Fix It," right? Because we noticed that running away from my issues is a good solution, and we've been doing it for years. So that solution ain't broke. So I'm not finna stop and turn around and deal with the stuff and everything else, So we just sit there and continue to run away from it, right? And then we also don't understand the little things in which we're running away from, or how we do it. Sometimes we use other people to run away from things, right? Sometimes I don't do this, and put this out there. I don't do this, but I could use, let's say, for instance, my girlfriend to run away from my issues, right? I'm going to spend all the time with my girlfriend, or I'm about to spend all this money on my girlfriend, or I'm about to do all of this stuff with my girl so I don't have to face my issues. We use people to run away from certain situations. We use traveling to run away from certain situations. We use everything that we could do in order to run away from certain situations, because running away has gotten comfortable, and it is scary to face that. But that's the thing that you have to understand, right? So when it comes to running away from situations, we know how bad it could be. We know that it's setting us up for the inevitable pain that's going to be there in the future. We understand that. But when it comes to actually facing it, what do you do? The first thing you got to do above anything else is to expect it to be hard, right? Expect that shit to be hard. Before you do anything else, expect it to be hard, right? Expect whatever you're running away from to be hard, because it will be hard. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something you can knock out in 2 seconds. It's going to bring up a bunch of raggedy feelings that you hate dealing with. I don't like dealing with emotional feelings. I don't like getting emotional. I don't like getting soft. But when I have to face some of my shit, I have to deal with those uncomfortable ass feelings. But that comes with facing it, right? So before we even start looking at how we're going to face it, understand that it's going to be hard. And anything that is going to be difficult will allow you to grow in the future. Anything that's going to be difficult is nothing more but a way for you to grow. Pain is a necessity in many of our lives. Pain is a necessity in many of our lives. Last week, my boy Patrick said, if you're always good, how do you really know what good is, right? If you're just always chilling, how do you even know what chilling is, right? How do you even know what good things are if you've never experienced anything bad, right? So understand, whatever you have to face is going to get comfortable. So once you actually understand that and sit with that, first identify what you're running away from, right? And sometimes what you're running away from may not be that thing that's in front of you, right? It may not be that one thing in front of you. It may be, 2, 3, 4 things behind that. because as you're running away, things are building. Things are building. Your problems are getting bigger, right? So you're not running away from that immediate thing that's in front of you. You're running away from that thing that happened, I don't know, 4 months ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? And it's hard for you to face that. It's hard. But like I said earlier, you have to expect the bullshit. Now, when you have all of these things, once you've identified it and you have all of these things going on, do what you can, right? That's why it's so important to only do and focus on what you can control, right? Writing a list of the things that you've been running away from and figure out what you can knock out right now, what you can't control right now. Do that, right? Because when you're able to write those things down and figure out what you can knock out, that gives you a physical roadmap. That gives you a roadmap in how to navigate through your shit, right? How to get through all of the nonsense, all of that clutter, right? Oh, one of my problems is that I have to do laundry. Well, let me do laundry. One of my problems is that I don't study and I procrastinate. Let me do that. One of my problems is that I don't hit on my brother and we're losing a relationship. Well, let me do that, right? Whatever it is, right? Write the stuff out. Figure out what you could accomplish and knock out those things that are small. Don't take on like the biggest thing. Don't take on the biggest thing in the beginning. Knock out those small things first. Like I said, if that small thing is making up your bed, knock that shit out, right? Knock that shit out. Make up your bed. Do those small things, because the second you try to go back and face that big thing, oh, you're going to get knocked out. Life is going to beat you up. You're going to fail, and now you're going to be defeated. Now you're just going to be like, I will never get over this shit. Nah, it's not that you would never get over it. It's that you just wasn't ready at that moment to get over it, right? There are certain things in our life to where we're just not ready to get over it yet. We're just not ready to face things yet. And that's true. However, you don't know when you will be ready, right? A lot of people say, I'm going to face my situation when I'm ready to face it. What the hell does that mean? God isn't going to give you a sign and be like, oh, today is the day. You're ready to face your issue. You've been doing this. No. The only way you're going to be ready to face your issue is by conquering other issues. So those small little problems in your life, knock them out. So that when you've knocked out 10 things, you can look at that big boss problem and just be like, yo, I've been training for you, dog. It's time to knock you out, right? Have that momentum under your belt, right? And understand that if you go face that problem and it's too hard and you kind of run away from it again, you kind of fail, that's okay. That is perfectly fine, right? Perfectly fine. The one thing when it comes to that, though, is that you understand is that you tried. One is that you tried, and then two, you're not dead. You're not dead, right? Because it can get way worse. Way worse. Way worse. Please understand that. If you go try to face an issue and that issue knocks you out and your anxiety got the best of you, your depression got the best of you, you had an anxiety attack and all of this other stuff, yo, that does not mean that that problem is over. You know, you may have lost that battle, but you didn't lose the war, right? You may have lost that situation, but that does not mean that problem is going to always win. What you have to understand is that, okay, I may have lost today, but what could I do differently the next time? If that means that I can't directly go face to face with that person, okay, cool. Let me not go face to face with that person. Let me gradually move forward. Let me call him. Let me write a letter. Let me do whatever. That person doesn't even have to know that you're trying to overcome and face your bullshit. If your bullshit involves a certain person, that person doesn't have to be aware of it. You don't have to let that person know that you're trying to forgive them. You don't have to let that person know that you're trying to get over the nonsense that y'all went through. You don't have to let that person know anything, right? Forgiveness is about you. Forgiveness is not about them. Facing the issues that you have on in your life is about you. It is not about them. Just because your issue may involve someone else, that does not mean you have to bring that person into your journey of healing. You don't, because this is your journey of healing. This is not theirs. So if you go forth and try to see someone, if you go forth and try to face someone to overcome your feelings, understand that even though you're ready to face it, that person may not be ready to face it. So what that person is going to do is that person is going to sit there and make it 1,000 times harder for you, so you're not going to be able to get over it. And that's going to make you harder. That's going to make you feel as if you haven't been progressing. That person is going to make you feel worthless. That person is going to make you feel like shit. When that's not the case, that's because that person isn't in the right mindset. That person isn't in the right state to actually think about the situation. So get over it and face the stuff for you. Not for them. Not for the next person. For you. You do not have to go back and backtrack and talk to somebody that you've been avoiding for years. You don't have to. Deal with self, because that's the one thing we have to understand. The reason why we never are able to run away from our situations is because our situations are not, our challenges and our problems are not external. They're all internal. Everything is internal. Those problems and challenges that you have going on, they're internal. So you could be running, living your best life in fucking, I don't know, Alaska, where it's cold, but you drunk and now you're warm. Like, you could be living your best life wherever. But you still got to deal with those internal struggles. You still have to deal with those internal challenges. Period. So always take a second, step back and look in self. Step back and look at that man in the mirror. Take a step back and understand that you have to live with you. I don't have to live with you. Dieter doesn't have to live with you. My girl doesn't have to live with you. You have to live with you. You have to live with your shit. It's important to have that support. It's important to have those people in your corner that's going to have your back, that's going to look out for you, that's going to help you out with carrying your load and all of these other things. But at the end of the day, when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep, it's you and them 4 Raws in that dark ass room. What are you going to do? Are you going to continue to try to run away from it, or are you just going to be like, you know what, let me face it? That's a decision that you have to make. That's what you have to make. Not me. And I can do everything in the world to probably convince you to make that decision. I can give you the coldest motivational speech. I can tell you all of these great things in order for you to just feel ready to get through your shit. But here's the thing with motivation. Motivation is good when you're feeling good. Motivation ain't shit when life smacks you in the face. Motivation is going to die out as soon as you hit a roadblock. I can tell you the dopest speech right now, but you can go outside and get smacked by something, by life. All that motivation, everything you just heard is going to go out the window. You have to be committed towards facing those problems that you've been running away from. Committed towards it, right? You have to make that conscious decision of, I'm not going to run away anymore. Make that conscious decision that I'm not going to run away anymore. And then turn around and face what you need to face. And as I said in the beginning, expect it to be uncomfortable. Expect it to be hard. If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't be running away from it. Expect to get beat up. Expect to lose. Expect to cry. Expect to have an anxiety attack. Expect to feel weak. Expect to feel all of these things. But what you're going to do is you're going to get stronger. You're going to get stronger. I speak about this a lot, especially in my group therapy sessions. I firmly believe we can build a tolerance to our pain. I firmly believe we can build a tolerance to certain emotions that we have. But the only way we're going to build a tolerance to those emotions is if we face those emotions, right? We have to face that pain. We have to accept the shit. We have to love the shit. We have to accept every negative thing that comes with it, because what that's going to do, that's going to allow us to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So when something else in the future comes by and try to knock us off our head, we're just going to take it on the chin and keep moving. It's not going to be hard, because I've been facing everything that I've been dealing with thus far. So turn around and face the one thing you need to face. Understand it's going to be hard. Identify it. And just look at that man in the mirror and just be committed towards it. Don't look towards any motivation. Motivation is good. Motivation ain't shit when your back is against the wall. Motivation ain't shit when life smacks you in the face. You have to be dedicated. Dedicated and going towards getting those things done. So, moving forward into a question. As always, I like to leave everybody off with a question. And I always come up with the question during the show, right? So the one thing I have for you all, and this is something that literally just popped up in my head. Are you running away from your situation because you're afraid of it? Or are you running away from your situations because you're more in love with control? Are you running away from your situation because you're afraid of it, or are you running away from your situation because you appreciate control more? The reason why that question popped up in my head is because a lot of times, just because you're running away from your situation, that doesn't mean you're weak. Just because you're running away from your situation, that doesn't mean you're not bold or courageous or anything like that. That just means that you prefer to be comfortable, right? Not comfortable, prefer to be in control, right? Just because you run from your situation, that does not mean you're weak. That may just mean that you just prefer to be in control. The second we try to face a situation, we're not in control. That's why we run away from it all, because we're not going to be in control at the moment. Some of us may be running away from our situation strictly for that. Right? For me, it's not a control thing. It's more so just an uncomfortable thing. I don't like the way it feels to be emotional. I don't like the way it feels to deal with my feelings. I'm scared to deal with the feelings because I don't know what will come out of it. I refuse to sit there and cry. I refuse to. I'm too hard for that. I ain't no bitch, right? But even though I understand crying is very therapeutic, crying is very, very beneficial. Crying is a very useful and effective thing that we can use in all of our lives. That is a hump I personally have to get over. But are you running away from your situation solely because you prefer control? And we all prefer control, right? But are you really in control over your life if you're running away from it? If something else is forcing you to go a different direction, that's forcing you to go in a direction in which you're not supposed to go down, are you really controlling your life at that point? All right? So, to all those individuals who are listening, Carly, Didier, Keith, good looking for commenting, man. For all those individuals who have listened and didn't comment, good looking. To those individuals who will be listening later on, after the show's aired, later on tonight, tomorrow, next week, next year, good looking. And as always, to you, that one female or that one dude, good looking. Even though you ain't never heard me and you will never hear this ever in life, good looking. I appreciate you, man, and thank you. You probably haven't caught on yet, but you will catch on eventually. And as always, man, understand, ain't no wealth without your mental health. So please stay blessed and take care of yourself. Be great, y'all. Peace.